Hello, and welcome to the Doof Book Club, our monthly live stream discussion of a book chosen by you, our listeners. My name is Matt Freeman, and I'm joined as always by the John Hammond of podcasting, Scott Daly.
Wait, like the movie John Hammond, or like the book John Hammond?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Hello everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome. I hope you're all having a wonderful Friday evening. Excuse me as I have a cough drop in my mouth. I've had a bit of a sore throat for a week now. It's not been fun. I should have finished this before we started streaming, but too late for that. I see a lot of familiar names in chat right now. Hello, Aqualung. Hello, William, Kosh, Mary, and Bent Westward, and Bishop. Hey, if anyone is new out there, please say hello as well. And welcome if this is your first book club. If you stumbled upon us via the power of the algorithm, hello, we are Doof Media, and we do podcasts. We do podcasts about stories, about movies, about things that we love. We also organize and kind of lead this monthly book club. Matt, explain to the good people at home what a book club is.
Well, each month, Scott and I select 5 books from a pool submitted to us by our wonderful Doof community. We put up a poll for all of our supporters over on Patreon at patreon.com/Doof Media and let them vote on which they'd like us to talk about. The book with the most votes wins, and then we all read it.
And then we meet here on the last Friday or first Friday of the month and chat about the book for an hour or so. Matt and I will lead the discussion, but we will be chatting with you folks in the chat as well. So please be noisy and active and opinionated because we love it. All right, Matt, what are we doing for this month's book? What is our technically last book of 2024?
The December of 2024 book was Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. And the summary is as follows. An astonishing technique for recovering and cloning dinosaur DNA has been discovered. Now humankind's most thrilling fantasies have come true. Creatures extinct for eons roam Jurassic Park with their awesome presence and profound mystery, and all the world can visit them for a price until something goes wrong.
Oh my God. It's fine though. It's all going to work out.
Yeah.
Because there's like 6 movies.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to do one thing before we get started. Matt, you as you are telling folks what you thought of Jurassic Park, and we'll have the folks in chat also tell us what they thought about Jurassic Park. Had you read this book before? Did you read it for the book club? What did you think of it? While we're doing that, I am going to send a straw poll to everyone in chat. This is our vote for next month's book. As Matt said, we let our patrons vote on it, but we also let you folks who attend live vote as well. So you can click that poll and vote for 2 of the 5 choices there. We will add those votes to our patron vote, and that's how we will pick our book for next month. All right, Matt, Jurassic Park, the book. Tell me your history with it, and what did you think?
Well, my history with it is that I read it in 1993 when the movie came out because of the movie, obviously. And I was like 8, so I probably didn't absorb it super deeply. But there are various specific moments that I remembered quite vividly, though. And it was really rewarding rereading it. I think, it's funny. I'll just mention, we did a discussion of Jurassic Park, the film, over on our main Doof Media podcast feed, which is probably the same feed you're listening to this on anyway. But the point is, we kind of wanted to have the film discussion somewhat separated from the book discussion. There's going to be bleed over, obviously, but obviously, the reason most people our age know about Jurassic Park is because of the movie. But that being said, the book is actually a great book. Like, I really think this is an incredibly well put together thriller. It's just very competent and focused on what it's doing. It just executes. It's just like turning that tension dial, efficiently establishing character, efficiently kind of dropping the breadcrumbs of this mystery that it's building. And it's actually really fun to read, even if you already know everything that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. I think it's also one thing that I'm probably going to return to a few times in this conversation is I didn't realize it, but this is actually a business book.
Please explain.
Yeah, this is my pitch here. This is one of the best business books I've ever read, actually, because what it does is it takes a company. Jurassic Park is a company,
Mm-hmm.
and it says, look, you've got different kinds of people who are at a company. You've got your engineers, you've got your product guys, you've got your money guy with the big vision, the grand vision. You got your science guy. You've got your logistics guy, and you've got your programmer. And these are all archetypes of person, and they're all kind of caricatured business types, and it's a perfect it's almost a satire, honestly. Like you can read the book as a satire of like what happens when you put all these people together and they just like myopically do the thing that's in front of them, and they don't appreciate the fact that like this isn't just a normal business. You're doing something that actually requires a little bit more humility and thoughtfulness, as Ian Malcolm repeatedly tells us. And that's why it blows up in their faces. But like, I love each of the characters as a kind of, not quite caricature, but definitely archetype of like that kind of guy. Like I've met Henry Wu, I've met Dennis Nedry, I've met John Hammond in the business world. That's what I mean when I say this is a business book. Anybody else feel me on this?
Yeah, I get what you're saying there. I think it's very true that this is like, it is so interesting because I read this book as a kid, just like you, and I remember liking it, but I remember having this, because I also read Congo, I read Sphere. I don't think I've read all Crichton books, but I read a fair amount of them. I read The Lost World as well. And I remember having this child understanding of Crichton, which is like, this is some cool books, but they got a lot of like science mumbo jumbo that gets in the way of the fun stuff. That was my kid perception of these books. Congo, I think, is like the worst in that. We're like I feel like the first 100, like in Congo, you're just like, let's get to the monkeys, man. I want to see the killer monkeys. And it takes a long, long, long time to get there. So revisiting this book for like the first time in years and years and years, I was really, really captivated by all of the parts that don't have dinosaurs in them, which is, I think, is something that Aqua Lungfish says in the chat as well, that the science stuff, the business stuff, as you were saying, was some of the most engrossing stuff in the book to me. I found it really, really fascinating what Crichton is doing with all that. And yeah, I mean, the sequences, the thrilling sequences with the dinosaurs still work very, very well. But that stuff was the most interesting to me, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely, I mean, one place where the book and movie make it really easy for us to talk about the book specifically is the focus on chaos theory and really Ian Malcolm's whole philosophy.
The whole thing, yeah. Yep.
Which, they barely scratch the surface in the movie, whereas the book, he gets to go on multiple long lectures, which I don't mind at all when it's done well, which I think it is here.
Yeah.
One thing that I was surprised by on this read through of this book was that he actually kind of started to win me over more than I thought, because I'm a pretty pro science, pro technology guy. I'm an engineer. I like pushing the frontiers of knowledge and building cool stuff. That excites me. That's fun to me. The idea of the power of biotechnology is exciting to me. Mm-hmm. The idea that we could cure disease and improve our well-being in all these ways. So it actually takes a lot to push me to the point of being like, well, actually, hold on. Like, this is, and I mean, you don't even have to really talk about chaos theory. That's just kind of a fun framing that I think Crichton uses to put everything in. But it's really just like, hey, this is a really complicated system, and you have absolutely no idea how it works, really. You're just kind of button mashing, and the consequences are incredibly powerful. And so we should have some caution as we approach this thing.
Yeah.
And he won me over, at least to that extent, for sure.
Yeah, I will say I thought Malcolm's monologues at times got a little too didactic. I think the stuff at the very end where he goes on a thing about how wasn't it so much better in the caveman days where mankind only worked 20 hours a day to get food, and then we had the rest of the time for relaxation and art. And it's just like, yeah, okay, Ian, we also died at like 23, so let's not be too hasty here. Yeah. But no, I agree with you. I think That's true, Aqualung, but she was hopped up on morphine, so we don't have to take any of that stuff seriously. But no, I mean, I was really fascinated by these general ideas of this incredibly powerful thing that, yeah, I mean, like, I think calling it a business book is not something I ever would have said myself, but it is actually perfect that everyone is in their own silo doing their own thing and absolutely convinced that they have done everything in their they have thought of every contingency, every plan. And the way the book is structured, I think, is great, because the first thing we see in the book is a compy attacking a girl, right? Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing we see is a raptor attack, but the aftermath of a raptor attack, rather. But like the first real scene is a compy attack. So we know going into all of this that dinosaurs have escaped the island already, that they're so, especially when like Wu and Arnold are going through exactly why they know that they have exactly this many dinosaurs and no more and no less, and they're utmost confident in their ability to track and count these animals. We already know that that's bogus. Like, even before the Crichton reveals the mistake they've made, we know that they've already made a mistake. And it just allows you, I think that's where the kind of parody creeps in, when you're just like, you're watching these people with utmost confidence say something that is absolutely 100% wrong, and we, the audience, know it's wrong. And I think that is part of what is so enjoyable. Like, this is it unsurprising that Crichton was such a popular author, because this is an incredibly readable book. It just really, really moves. Even the science businessy stuff, I think, really moves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. I honestly was entertained by the business. It's like, there is a lot of conflict, right? There's a lot of drama that he squeezes out of the idea that, like, let's just pretend, just as a little parenthetical thought experiment, like this was actually just a book about creating some amusement park on an island. Mm-hmm. It's like you've still got all these issues of, like, the egos of these characters clashing, and the lawyer wanting to make sure everything's safe, and the money guy trying to dismiss him, but the science experts are telling him that you didn't do this right. And, like, before we even get to the idea, the real premise, which is clone dinosaurs, you already have all these threads of conflict, which is just the perfect bones of a good story. And then you throw the dinosaurs in there, and it's just amazing.
Yeah.
But I appreciated all that much more, definitely, than I did as a child, because I just didn't really care about that stuff as a child.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, I will say one of the most interesting things about talking about this book to me is that we have this movie comparison. I don't want to spend the entire episode talking about the movie. We did that already. But I think it's the weaknesses in the book, to me, are things that are kind of drawn attention to because we see the ways in which the movie does stuff so well. Like, people are talking in chat right now about all the sequences from this book that were put in later films. Like the compy attack from the opening of this book is put in the opening of the Lost World movie. The T-Rex going through the waterfall is put in the Lost World. The entire the pterodactyl attack scene, that entire part is just cut right out and dropped in the third movie. And it's this kind of thing where, because we have this comparison, we have this movie that it was Jurassic Park that, like, got to, like, pick and choose which parts and picked all the best ones, and ignored the ones that didn't work as well. It really highlights the flaws. And that's one thing, like, I think this is a great idea book. I think there's a lot of fun ideas in here. There's a lot of fun tension. I think overall the characters are pretty weak. And I think it's by design, what you're talking about. Like, these characters are archetypes. They are meant to be this is the business guy. This is the accounting guy. This is the lawyer. This is the engineer. And they are kind of very static in that. None of them really change. None of them really have any arcs. Like, I think the best example to me is Alan Grant, which a character we talked about yesterday that I love in the movie. He doesn't really have any kind of arc in this book at all. Like, I mean, I think the simple, brilliant thing Spielberg did was just go, oh, let's make him hate kids. It's like, oh, look, he's he's stuck in the park for 3 days with children. Let's just make him hate kids, and there we have some conflict and some arc that we can have. But in the book, Alan Grant specifically says, "No, I love kids. Kids are great. Yeah, I don't have anything against kids." And so he's just kind of completely static. And that's kind of how I feel about a lot of the characters in this book, is that they're just meant to represent a thing. They're not necessarily meant to be people.
Yeah. I think a lot of them, their fate is determined by their outlook in many regards. Like you can look at exactly who dies in this book. So I kind of made the opposite point when we talked yesterday, or the same point but applied to the movie. But like in the book, the geneticist Wu dies.
Mm-hmm.
Hammond dies.
Yep.
And the guy who dies in the at the T-Rex paddock, instead of being the lawyer Gennaro, was like sort of I don't know what I would call his job.
He was their PR guy, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. I didn't. It's funny, he's in the book so briefly, he doesn't leave much of an impression.
Harding dies, the vet that is basically not a character in the movie. Mm-hmm. He dies, I'm pretty sure.
I think so. But like those characters that we just listed do not die in the movie. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, they die in the book because they all have that core flaw of like arrogance, basically. And actually Gennaro lives because Gennaro is able to be persuaded that, like, hey, maybe this was dangerous. Yeah. Gennaro comes off looking a lot more, I don't want to say heroic, but like human. I think Gennaro is the closest thing we have to a character with an arc, really, because he I don't know, maybe that's too generous. See, that's the thing. I don't really hold that against the book, though. Like, I think this is just one of those books where, I mean, yeah, you and I really like storytelling that operates under the principle of like, what is this character's flaw, and the fun of the story is watching them overcome it. But I don't think that's like the only kind of story that I enjoy.
No.
And I think this is just a kind of story that is doing something different. It's like these archetypes represent different forces in the human psyche, and we're kind of watching the consequences of this play out. And I don't mind that we don't see a particular character who undergoes that kind of change that we might really need in some other type of story.
Yeah, I agree. I think the end result, though, is I feel pretty cold and indifferent towards them. Like, mm-hmm. I'm not like, there was never a moment when I was like worried about any of these characters or really emotionally invested in any of them because they're stand-ins. I mean, I think the closest exception to that is Tim. Unfortunately, he's paired with Lex, who in this novel is just the worst, most annoying little girl character you could possibly have. I mean, that's something we talked about yesterday with the movie, that they gave that character something to do. In the book, their ages are reversed. Tim is the older one, Lex is the younger one, and she just has nothing to do in the story except for complain and whine the entire time. And it doesn't leave you with a good feeling about her. But Tim is great. I enjoyed Timmy a lot.
Yeah.
I think you're right, and I think one of the things that I think would be fun to talk about is John Hammond, because we kind of talked about the movie version, and this book version is really, really fascinating to me, because I think something we mentioned yesterday was that he is an ideal, like a naive idealist in many ways, but I think he's also, this version of the character is kind of hopelessly corrupt and monstrous, and that's why the book punishes him. He gets eaten by compies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's awful. Like, that's the difference between him and his book and his movie version is he's just totally fixated on this idea of like, I can make my will a reality.
Yeah,
I am, basically I am as God. I can do whatever I want. I have the power, so why shouldn't I just do it? Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, that's the definition of hubris, actually.
Yeah.
And being killed by his own creations is the most time-honored of science fiction tropes, and it works perfectly here.
Yeah. Well, and he's like his end, like right before he gets attacked and killed, like he's going through and looking over everything that went wrong, and he's basically like, yeah, Nedry sucked. We were too dependent on automation. Arnold was actually the worst guy for the guy. Muldoon was a drunk, hard, like, and he's blaming everyone around him except for accepting the inevitability of the failure of this thing, and is like, so I'm gonna start over. And then the book punishes him for that. Like, he is, like, by design arcless. Like, he doesn't change. He does not. He stays fixed on his belief even as the reality of the system crumbles around him. Which is great. I'm not complaining about that at all, but it is just so different from the character. And there's people in chat saying that version would not have worked in the movie. I agree. I definitely agree. It's too. There's a lot of stuff that I just think wouldn't have worked in the movie, and it's like it's a little too rough.
Yeah, well, I think the book is just darker. Like, the book is significantly darker. Like, the movie definitely has moments of graphic violence, but it does not have a bunch of compies eating a baby in its crib.
Yeah.
In the first 50 pages. It does not have, like, graphic medical procedures trying to save the life of a man who's been ripped open by a raptor. And like, the book really is not trying to be like a fun romp like the Spielberg movie is. It's trying to be like a scary book. It's trying to be thrilling and scary. And I mean, I don't know if Jurassic Park is typically considered to be horror, but I think it probably qualifies, the book specifically. Whereas
maybe.
I mean, the movie has scares for sure. But I wouldn't think of it as a horror movie, whereas, like, he's going for a very specific thing with this book. Totally.
No, yeah, I mean, like, just the idea of, Hammond brings his grandkids along, which is, like, it's an absurd idea to do something like that when you're literally having, like, it's absurd in the movie too. It just, the movie doesn't focus on this as much. That, like, the point of this visit, the point of this weekend is that people are terrified that the island isn't safe, that animals are escaping from the island, and that animals are hurting people. And it's like, no, I'm going to bring my grandkids. And Book Hammond is utterly unperturbed by the fact that his grandchildren are, like, wandering through Jurassic Park by themselves, right? Like, you get the idea in the movie that Hammond is legitimately concerned about his grandchildren and is like, oh my God, what have I done? This is a horrible mistake. Like, as people are pointing out, like, in his long rant about why this was everyone else's fault but his, he blames his grandchildren as well. It's their fault for coming, even though he invited them. And so, like, that fully moves him into monstrous when he doesn't even have any kind of empathy towards the fact that he almost got 2 children killed because of his hubris.
Right. And it ends up making it satisfying to watch him get eaten. Like,
yes.
I think that's one thing where the book really, there are several characters who we are actually in their point of view when they are killed. And generally, this is satisfying, actually.
Yeah.
Like, Dennis Nedry is the other one, obviously. And I don't remember actually if we're in the PR guys. I don't think we are. I think we just graphically watch him get eaten by the T-Rex while the baby T-Rex while the rest of the characters look on.
Yeah, because he's the one that, like, he does the Muldoon. Not the Muldoon. He does the Gennaro thing in the movie where he just runs out of the car. He doesn't run to a bathroom like in the movie, but he just runs out of the car and into the forest and eventually is killed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did enjoy I forgot entirely about the juvenile T-Rex as a plot element. And it's like,
which again comes back in the Lost World.
Yeah. But in this case, it's still like a 7 or 8 foot tall monster.
Yeah.
So it's just like it's interesting how it's like there's something scary about an 8 foot tall dinosaur that is distinct from a 26 foot tall dinosaur, and also distinct from like a 6 foot tall. I don't know if it makes sense why that would be, but I just feel like it's a different but also very scary sort of thing.
Yeah. Man, I forgot how many things happen in this book. Like, we're talking about the things that appear in different ones. Like, the kind of denouement ending where they go to the raptor nest to count the eggs. Like, I completely forgot that was in the story, and I think that happens in movie 3 as well, where Grant ends up at the raptor nest. That's when he, like, talks to the raptors with their bone or something. Those are not good movies, but totally forgot that happened in this. And the whole kind of ticking clock idea that Crichton introduces, where it's not enough that they're just trapped in this wildlife preserve with dangerous animals, but also in 24 hours a boat's going to get to the mainland and raptors are going to be out on it. And although it seems like that happens anyway, so but
yeah,
it's like a good like part of the thriller horror element is, I think, having this ticking clock where they just need to get safe, they need to get home, they need to inform people of things.
Yeah, I actually kind of appreciated that they added a ticking clock. I didn't remember that either. Yeah, thanks for reminding me of the ending sequence where they go to the raptor nest, because like that was the one part of the book where I was like, are you completely insane?
Yeah, I didn't like it. I was working my way up to it, but I not a big fan of exactly how this book ends.
It's just kind of inconsistent because the raptors are described as being incredibly perceptive and aggressive.
Yeah,
and
like they describe them as smarter than like chimps, essentially, right? Like the conclusion they make from how they act is they're incredibly aggressive, but also incredibly smart. And yeah, we're just gonna go to their home because we have to count these eggs. We have to. It's like, do you have to?
And like that doesn't even really make sense, because it's like, well, maybe they had multiple locations where they had eggs, and so you can't actually guarantee that you're getting a full count anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no way you could walk into a nest like that, like hiding from the shadows and count accurately. It's the one part of the book that I felt was like, oh, this just feels like you really wanted this ending where Grant realizes they're about to migrate, and that's a cool moment. Like I like that, but he like has to get there through this contrivance that doesn't really work on me.
Yeah, I feel like I would have had some very specific things that I would have changed to make it not objectionable to me, which is just like, don't have it be like they're 3 feet away from the velociraptors the whole time. Like, have it be where they find some like cliff they're able to look down into a pit, and in the pit are the raptors, and then at least you could believe that, like, well, if the raptors see us, then we can just run back to our Jeep and get away or something like that. But it's like, no, I just don't think these characters would have done that. Like, there's not
after surviving. Like the argument they're being made here, and Bishop is saying this, is that they need to take responsibility for this things themselves, which, like, I get that. It's just they don't actually do that, right? Like they don't accomplish anything. It's just a way to get them out there to witness the migration point. So we're talking a little bit about Ian Malcolm in the chat. What do you think? So in your hypothesis about who lives and who dies in this story, what do you think about the death of Ian Malcolm? Because in this book, Ian Malcolm does die at the very end. Now, of course, one of the most famous retcons in history is that, just kidding, he didn't actually die. We said at the end of the book that he died. Like, I forget the exact line in the Lost World novel, but it's something like, they reported his death prematurely or something.
I do have a thought about this, which is basically that, like, Malcolm's character flaw is that he didn't have the courage of his convictions. Like, Grant at least just walks into the situation not understanding what's going on. So he doesn't know that there's dinosaurs on the island. Malcolm knows exactly what's going on and has computer models that show that everything is going to go completely off the rails and this is going to be a nightmare. And yet he still just, like, blithely shows up with his rock star persona and gives people, lectures. I think he's actually intentionally written to be a little bit of a bore and like unpleasant. I think this might be a fun sidebar conversation, but just like, I don't think that Crichton's intent is that we think that Ian Malcolm is just so cool. I think Ian Malcolm is supposed to be kind of a tedious blowhard, and he loves hearing himself talk, and he loves being right. And unfortunately, he loves that more than being alive, because he went to the island instead of being like, no, I'm not going to your island. It's a death trap. Why would I go to your island? Which is what, like, maybe he should have done. I think that's my sense of Malcolm.
I like that argument, because, like, if you look back and think of, like, what does Ian Malcolm accomplish in this story? And the answer is nothing. He doesn't do anything. Like he gets to be right, essentially, is all of it. Is that like the kind of the structural device of the book is that the complicated system in chaos theory is like the different parts, right? As the things get worse and more complicated, and we get those break points in the book. But he just gets to be the told you so guy, but he doesn't do anything about it. It's one thing to be like, you're doing this terrible thing, I know it's gonna fail, I know you're all idiots, but I'm not gonna do anything to stop you, or I'm not even gonna try. I'm gonna take your money and I'm gonna blithely tell you how stupid you are from on top of my golden pedestal, but I'm not gonna do anything. Like, I think a great example of this is, we were talking about Bishop's, which is supposed to be sarcastic, comment about that they have to take responsibility. If Ian Malcolm had not been injured, would Ian Malcolm have gone to the raptor nest with them and said, yeah, right, this is our responsibility to take care of this? No, I don't think so. Absolutely not. That's not the type of person he is. So I think you're right about this. I think this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I just, in the movie, he says, boy, do I hate being right all the time. And while he doesn't say that in the book, that is basically his personality, is like, look how smart and then he gets immediately bitten on the leg and horrible injury. And oh my God. It's like, like you knew this was going to happen.
Yeah. And I think the reason why the character was so popular, I think almost entirely derives from Jeff Goldblum and the performance. And I think the movie version of Ian Malcolm is still very much the I told you so guy, but he's also a much more active role in the reason Ian Malcolm gets hurt in the movie is because he got out of the car and lit a flare because he was trying to distract the T-Rex from eating children. And so like that makes him much more sympathetic and much more active in what happens to him. And there's that wonderful scene where John Hammond is trying to lead Ellie through the power thing, and he's like, he just grabs the radio and says, there's pipes, look at the power lines above you, follow those. So they definitely made him a much more sympathetic, active character in the film.
That's a great point. Like, if anything, here's another example of like change, where basically in the book, Malcolm and Hammond start out completely at loggerheads and they continue to basically hate each other through the entire book. Whereas in the movie, we get that very early scene where Hammond seemingly very genuinely says, I really hate that man. But then by the end of the movie, they're cooperating. They're, I don't know if I want to say they're friends, but like they're on the same page. And that's just not something that happened at all in the book.
Goldblum's best role since Earth Girls Are Easy. Wow. Incredible. And like, none of this is critique, by the way. It's just I really like this. It's just really interesting how these characters are being constructed and how they, like, I think the Malcolm character is, I think you said yesterday that he's essentially Crichton's mouthpiece in a lot of the stuff. Like, he's there to kind of deliver the message of the novel from Crichton's perspective. And it's interesting that I think that's both of the things that you've said is true, that he is kind of the mouthpiece of Michael Crichton, while also being a character created by Crichton to have his own flaws and to be imperfect and to suffer the consequences for it.
I wonder, like, what do you think about Crichton's intent here? Not that we generally need a firm answer on like what was the author's intent, but like I think for example, when Ian Malcolm starts talking about phase space to basically laymen who have no idea what he's talking about, like my take on that, like as a scientist, is like I would never use the words phase space to explain a concept, because that's like 7 levels of abstraction deep into the problem, and there's gonna be a much more immediate like example that you can reach for, and like Malcolm saying that in the first place, I got the strong impression of like, okay, this is a guy who just loves being smarter than everybody else. I don't know if that's a common impression, but that's the impression I got this time.
Yeah, I think so. But I think that the point of the book, like, there's actually an introduction to this novel that I thought was like, it's listed as an introduction, so I assumed it was like with the authorial voice, and it was like not within the. It was an introduction, not within the realms of the novel itself, but it is. It's an introduction that takes place within the world of the book, talking about bioengineering and things like that. And I honestly think it's like Crichton was reading about this stuff, found it fascinating, and then like just the idea to use dinosaurs as a way of sending a message about the kind of the destructive nature of science sometimes I think is a fascinating one, because dinosaurs are like objectively the coolest thing ever. And like every person that was a child is probably like, yeah, I would love to actually get to see a dinosaur. And so like you construct this world in which that's possible, and then you immediately turn around and go, hey, actually this is a really dumb idea, and we're messing with stuff we probably shouldn't mess with. So like I think it is a really fascinating thing that the lesson of Jurassic Park is and always has been, this is bad and stupid and we shouldn't have done it. And it's so fun that's with, again, the coolest thing I ever heard of. Like you tell 7-year-old me, hey, they found a way to clone a dinosaur and now you can go to a park and look at a real live dinosaur. I would say that's the greatest thing. That's the greatest accomplishment of mankind ever. Wow. And so it's such a way in on kind of tricking you into the lesson of this whole thing. So, I mean, I think like bioengineering was like a big, like talked about thing, right, in the 80s and 90s, that this is going to take over and be this incredibly powerful thing. And he thought the stuff was cool and interesting, but he also saw the danger in it. Yeah.
I definitely agreed. Like the premise of the book is so strong that I would have forgiven it being like way worse in execution. I mean, it so happens that I think it's actually quite well executed.
Yeah.
But like the premise, it's one of the best. It's got to be one of the best premises of any book, where like putting these things together. It's funny because I'm trying to look this up as we're talking, which never works. But I remember when I was a little kid, like 5. So this must have been in like 1990. There was like these audio cassettes that I would listen to that my mom got me because I was super into dinosaurs. And like one of them was about like this monorail was going through this dinosaur park of some kind. And I think maybe the dinosaurs had been, I don't remember how the dinosaurs were there. Maybe it was time travel. Maybe it was like a time machine, or like the monorail was a time machine monorail. And then the kids fall off the monorail and they're stuck in the dinosaur park and they have to get out. And it's funny because like that was prior to Jurassic Park, obviously. And maybe Crichton even got his idea from this. But like the idea of mixing it in with these themes of biotechnology and making it feel very grounded, even if, kind of like we said last night, the reality of bioengineering is that it's like 1,000 times harder than it's portrayed in the book. But like still, he manages to make it feel grounded and make it feel like it's something that could happen. That I think elevates it beyond just the premise of like people have to fight dinosaurs into like this is a genuinely great science fiction story on top of, being a great thriller. Actually, I was thinking about this. I think we talked about this a few days ago, but like when I originally finished the book, kind of interesting to me that Crichton is not really considered like a great of science fiction. And it's like I thought a bit about it, because it's like, okay, he wrote Sphere, which is fairly well regarded, and they made a movie out of it. He wrote Congo, which is not so well regarded, and they made a bad movie. He wrote Andromeda Strain, which my understanding is that's a good book, and they made kind of a classic movie out of it, actually. He did Westworld, which went on to become like a lot more culturally resonant even after he died. And then Jurassic Park, just to crown that, is really like universally beloved. And yeah, he may have written some stinkers in there, but like that's a pretty good run of books. And I just think it's interesting that you never hear his name in the same breath as like Le Guin and Asimov and whatever, right? I just think it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of like to me, and maybe this is just complete anecdotal, and I'm just wrong, but like got shelved as like airport read material, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like these are just books you read when you're stuck in an airport or stuck on a beach or something like that. That just he became like that kind of perception. I mean, the interesting thing is like Stephen King. We've talked a lot about Stephen King's perception in media, and he's incredibly popular. I think he has a similar perception, but also he has such a dedicated fan base that like people see him as a genuinely great storyteller. But yeah, I mean, I don't see people talk about Crichton in that way very much.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe it is like a combination of, with the exception of Jurassic Park, the adaptations of his work are pretty mixed.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Andromeda Strain was a TV series that did pretty well, but like as people are talking about in chat, like Congo was not a good movie. Sphere, as much as I loved that movie, it was not a very good movie. It's so, and I say that knowing that like my comparison point here is Stephen King, who has had more terrible adaptations of his books than Crichton by far, right?
Mm-hmm.
13th Warrior was Crichton as well. Yeah.
And it was great. I love 13th Warrior.
I like it. I don't think it. I think it's infamous as like one of the biggest bombs in the history of film. So yeah. So yeah. I mean, I don't know why that he's just not seen in this incredibly favorable light. Because yeah, I mean, like Jurassic Park, I think is an all-time novel that led to an all-time great film.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think he would be more highly regarded than that.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a well-written book. Like it is like
Yeah.
he's a good writer. His prose is good. It's not like incredible, but it's good. It's easy to read. It's easy to understand. He's talking about complicated things. Complicated science stuff is going on in this novel, and it's easy to pick up on.
Yeah. I think one of the first things you said there, like he just got classified as an airport, novel writer, and I think that's kind of fair. Like yes, the books are good, but they're good in that way where it's like, here's a big thick book, and it's going to keep you absolutely glued to the page, and it's going to have some fun ideas in there, but kind of that's not the Ursula Le Guin would never write a 900-page novel where like there's just a bunch of like plotty twists and turns and
Yeah.
It's just not the same thing. So I mean, he's not trying to write literary fiction, is what I'm saying, and that's fine. I don't think everybody needs to write literary fiction.
No.
I think and just also like I think he does have enough misses that it actually matters. I mean, my own story with Crichton overall is I read Jurassic Park, and I read The Lost World, and I may have read Sphere. I don't even remember. And then I read the book Prey, which is about like nanotechnology. And I thought it was so bad that I never picked up another Crichton book. And that to me kind of tells the whole story, where
that one, Prey, was published posthumously, right?
I don't remember.
I believe it was. Not 100% sure on that. He also created ER, the television series ER. Let's not forget about that. One of the most successful doctor shows of all time.
That's crazy.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, here's one complaint I have about this book. This is an actual complaint about the writing of this book. It annoys me how often Crichton describes the dinosaurs as reptilian and making reptilian noises and having reptilian tongues, when he has over and over again stated throughout the book that they are much more bird-like. It's like he forgets at times. And look, I've already have a counter to my critique here, which is that Wu mixed in amphibian DNA with these things, and so they're not full real dinosaurs. And so when we see it make a reptilian noise, well, that's the reptile DNA that got thrown in there. But it just strike me as weird that we have this clearly like over and over again, the book tells us how they move like birds. They don't seem like lizards. They don't seem like reptiles. And then he like constantly would be like, and then it flicked his tongue reptilianly. And I was like, wait a minute. wait. You said, what are you talking about? It's interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if it bothered me per se, but I did notice like every single time he said it, because I was just like, but that's so, and part of it, I think honestly, part of it is it that it clashes with my mental picture, which is of course totally informed by the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So like you see the raptors, and in your mind, like you just imagine them having that gait and the head bob,
mm-hmm.
and you don't see them flicking their tongue. Like they don't, like their skin is scaly, but other than that, there's very little about them that really seems, like an iguana or even like a crocodile. They're not that.
Yeah.
And so even it would even be a little bit distracting to me when he would say like the raptor roared. And it's like, why would that be distracting? It's like, well, the raptors don't really roar in the movies. They kind of do that scream.
Yeah.
And they snarl, but they don't really do anything that I would call a roar. And it's like, that's not Crichton's fault. That's because I watched the movies a whole bunch of times, and that to me is how a raptor behaves.
It's really funny because there was a moment, and I watched every single special feature on the Jurassic Park DVD when I was a child. Of course I did. The one thing that I did see is that there was an earlier version of the CG for the raptor in the kitchen when it sniffs the spoon that Timmy was using.
Mm-hmm.
It outflicks a very reptilian-like tongue that feels around in the spoon, and the people they had on set went like, no, that's not what we think it would look like, and so they went back and replaced it with a much more I guess bird-like looking tongue. But like it's so funny that like that's a thing that they caught during production that just and I don't know if this is a Crichton like playing like 12th level chess where he put all this stuff in on purpose to like demonstrate the fact that these really aren't dinosaurs in the way that they were, but they're dinosaurs in the way that they were created.
Yeah.
But I think it's just he just fell back on old habits because he had an image in his head of what these animals looked like.
Yeah, I mean, I that's the thing, because I grew up from when I was a little kid. All of the media that I had really did depict dinosaurs as almost just being like a crocodile, or an iguana that kind of like sat back on its haunches. More, there was nothing like the way velociraptors moved in Jurassic Park prior to Jurassic Park.
Can you imagine writing Jurassic Park without having seen Jurassic Park first? That's wild.
I can't believe he did that.
How did he do it?
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one, I'm just going to repeat briefly a thing we said last night, which is like that I do actually think that the idea that the dinosaurs can't see you if you don't move was supposed to be Wu just tossed in some amphibian DNA, and now the dinosaurs can't see you unless you're moving.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember if the book actually says that outright, but that was my strong subtextual read from the book, was like, there's no way that a velociraptor can't see you if you don't move. That's doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know, but maybe I'm wrong though. Maybe that was just another one of those things where it's like we don't know. We don't know what dinosaurs were like, actually.
Yeah, we have no idea. We have it's so funny. I think because I was watching dinosaur related stuff this week, I got like the algorithm fed me some YouTube short that was like a person showing different animals if we had just like wrapped their bones in skin the way we originally did with we first discovered dinosaur bones. Like it was like I can't remember what the animals were, but it was like animals we all would recognize, and it's like, and this thing crazy because this is what they did at first. They just wrapped it in skin, and of course there's much more stuff. The thing that pissed me off about the video, and I might send this to you because it's going to piss you off too, is that she goes, now we know that this is what dinosaurs actually looked like. And like it starts adding feathers and girth and all this stuff to it. It's like, no, don't say this is what they actually looked like. That's not what you mean. What you mean is we now think that this is probably a more accurate depiction of what dinosaurs could have possibly looked like.
Yeah. It's funny because like I mean, there's a bunch of cool stuff. So have you seen the Ankylosaurus like head and upper and neck?
No.
So there's this one thing where it's like there were some really, really specific preservation conditions such that like the fossil is like it's still a fossil in the sense that it's like stone, but it just looks exactly like, if you're watching me on video, like an Ankylosaurus basically from the shoulders up, like the head and all the spikes coming off of its head and all the details of all the plates of its face and everything. It's not just the bones. It's like a cast, almost like a cast of an Ankylosaurus.
Oh, wow.
And that's totally awesome. And so it's like, okay, for at least that animal, we can say what it actually looked like. No feathers, by the way. But
you're gonna die on the anti-feather hill.
I'm never letting this go. But yeah, no, I think generally, I mean, I love thinking about the Spinosaurus because the Spinosaurus is like the largest predator that ever lived, or maybe just the largest land predator. But anyway, this enormous animal makes Tyrannosaurus Rex look small, and like we really don't know if it was bipedal or quadrupedal. We don't know if it was aquatic or terrestrial or sort of both. People have theories, and some of the theories I think maybe have more justification than others, but they are just theories. And it's just kind of crazy that like, yeah, we don't even know. That seems like a pretty basic question. Like, is this a land animal or a water animal? And we don't really know the answer for even something as cool as the Spinosaurus.
Well, because it's a fucking rock that used to be a bone. Like, that's what we're going off of here. It looks like, and it's so interesting because, you know, even as a kid going to a museum, like you go look at like the T-Rex skeleton put up there, and what you actually realize is that like that's just a plaster recreation of the bones that they found. And like I was at the Pro Museum here in Dallas last weekend, and they have I forget what kind of dinosaur it is, but they have a skeleton, and they have the actual like plaster version of the skeleton hanging up like you would normally see them, and then below it they have like one of the most intact versions of the neck, the actual like fossil of the neck they have on display. And man, it's like I guess because you told me that was a dinosaur long neck, I could be like, yeah, I see it. I see the spine there. But man, it just looks like a bunch of rocks. And it's like, so like, it is really, we talked about this yesterday, but it is really remarkable just the amount of stuff we know about these animals from very, very limited things to work with here.
Yeah. I mean, in many cases, we have like, for some of these sauropods, we have like a femur or like a spinal, vertebrae.
Right.
And then they're like, well, based on correlations between other sauropods and their vertebrae sizes, we estimate that this animal was this long and this tall and weighed this much and probably ate this kind of thing because of the age that it's at. And it's like all of this is inference. I would say maybe not even maybe inference is too strong a word. It's like extrapolation, really.
Yeah.
And it's the best they have. I'm not blaming anyone, but I don't know. I love dinosaurs. I love paleontology. I think it's a fascinating field.
Yeah. How much do you remember about The Lost World, the novel sequel to this?
Dribs and drabs. I mean, I read it when I was a bit older, and I mean, why? Do you have a specific thing you want to talk about?
I don't have anything specific. Just like I can't remember if it's as good of a book or not.
I don't think it is. I don't remember being like drawn in the same way that I was.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like it was very tense. Like it was a very tense book. Like it has a lot of really great set pieces, just like this book has a lot of great set pieces. But I don't think. I mean, it's also different from the movie, where probably my mind is a bit distorted because they definitely don't have the part where the T-Rex gets to, the mainland in the book. I don't remember how the book ends at all, actually, now that you put it to me. So I guess I don't remember it that well.
I remember there's more like technology stuff in it. Mm-hmm. Like I feel like the this might be just making it up. Like, but in Jurassic World, they have that set piece with like the rolling ball thing that's attacked by a dinosaur, and I feel like those are in the Lost World. I might be completely misremembering this, but I feel like they ride around in some round vehicle at some point in the book. I have this very distinct memory of that, but I don't know if that's accurate at all.
Yeah, I don't remember that at all from the book, but I could be wrong.
I'm looking this up now.
Now I'm trying to remember, is the set piece with the trailer, is that even in the book?
I don't think it's in the book. I mean, I'm pretty sure there is a moment where they like take the baby T-Rex back, and then get attacked. But
yeah,
I think they just, I think it's a lot like it's not the Spielberg set piece. I think they just show up and push a trailer off a cliff, I think.
Yeah, it's not. I think that's right. And yeah, I think there is the part with stealing the egg, but it doesn't get stolen back to the mainland.
Aqualungfish is telling me that my round ball thing is just a kid being dragged in a cage. So it was not round, it was square, but
yeah, I can see how you got there. Vince Vaughn's character gets eaten early. Okay.
I liked the movie too. I like Lost World. I think that trailer set piece is like another all-time Steven Spielberg set piece. I think it works really, really well. I like it a lot. The movie as a whole doesn't really work, but I really like that scene at least.
Oh, this is fun. So I'm being reminded that in the Lost World, the book, one of the animals is actually the Carnotaurus, which once again Crichton does the thing where he says, well, maybe this animal has superpowers that would not have been preserved in the fossil record. Like, for example, it can like camouflage itself like a chameleon. And that idea is not used in that movie, but then is used later in Jurassic World. So once again, people just reuse the ideas from Crichton over and over in different movies. That's pretty funny. Yeah,
and I'm thanks Aqualung reminding me. There's not like InGen trying to come capture dinosaurs to make some mainland display. It's just like Dodgson. We got Dodgson here. He shows up again. He was in the first novel, shows up again here and is part of the group that's coming. Instead of stealing the genome this time, we're just going to steal the eggs, and that's how we'll make our riches. We'll steal the Site B eggs, and that goes about as well as you would expect.
Yeah.
So I have this anecdote in my head, and I don't know if it's true at all, that like Crichton wasn't interested in writing another novel, and then Spielberg came to him and was like, "Hey, we want to do a sequel. Do it." Do it. And like, we also want to, everyone loves Jeff Goldblum, so we want him to be the lead, so bring him back from the dead. I don't know if any of that's actually true, but that's the anecdote that I've had in my head for years. It's weird how stuff like that gets passed. Yeah, Bent Westward saying he heard that too, so maybe it's true, or maybe we just both were given the same false information.
I think you're right. I mean, what I'm reading here says that it was basically the fans and Spielberg being like, "Hey, we want to make a sequel," and then, I mean, I think Crichton is commercially minded. Like that's a true thing you can say about him.
Sure.
Like that's why he got his feet wet in television. He likes to make stories that are going to be commercially successful, and so the idea of following up his record-breaking smash success Jurassic Park with the sequel probably was pretty appealing to him.
Yeah, I think you're right. Matt Newsom's talking about Lost World and Vince Vaughn's character in the Lost World. The only thing I remember about Vince Vaughn's character in the Lost World is how he joined Greenpeace because it was 60% women. Which is just, there's a lot of wild things in that movie. I actually enjoy it, but there's a lot of wild things in that movie. For some reason, the main thing I remember from the
The Lost World is like lengthy digression about this incredibly expensive air rifle that they have, where it's like the most expensive rifle in the world because it shoots the darts that they need to be able to shoot at the animals.
Sure.
And doesn't somebody like prick themselves with the neurotoxin at some point? Or is that another...
As you said that, I remember that happening. Yeah.
I don't. It's really
could
really
not
fun.
be true, but yeah,
fun to remember something that you read when you were a kid and try to figure out if any of that actually happened.
Speaking of awesome rifles, something I forgot to talk about last night that I meant to talk about in the movie Jurassic Park is Muldoon's like shotgun he has. I maybe you're not like me at all, but like when he's sitting there kind of hunting the raptor and he does this long drawn out thing where he like gets the butt of the rifle and opens it up and then like clicks the back of it into place. I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. And I've never been like a big gun person, but I wanted that gun with that shoulder thing would come out. Like I wanted that gun so bad because I thought it was so cool. That he, like, and he's like trying to be really quiet with it as he does. I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Definitely. The only part about that bothers me is that he should have done that like immediately. There was no reason to wait until he was like in position, but also not the kind of thing that actually bothers me. I just say that, like, you know, I would have already had the stock pulled out.
Well, then he couldn't say clever girl.
Yeah. Right. He's not a drunk in the movie, but he's like, he has a bottle of scotch in his hand.
He's like
time
wasted the entire time in the book. Yeah. Yeah. And he dies for it. Wait, no, does he? No, he lives.
No, he lives. He lives because he respects the animals.
Yeah.
He gets caught in a piece of pipe at some point. I don't remember how he got out of that situation. You just see him again later and he's fine.
That is a moment in the book where like I've really struggled with the geography of that entire sequence. Also like that. So that whole thing. So there are two raptors on the roof, like eating metal bars, trying to get into the visitor center. And then like Ellie and Wu go out to like distract some of the raptors. But so like, I fully can't, like, I can't see this in my head. I struggle with this a lot. So she's behind the fence, or she eventually goes out in front of the fence and then they chase her back and behind the fence. But the two raptors on the roof could just at any time jump off the roof and they're behind the fence too. Is that true?
Yes.
That seems like a really bad idea.
For her to be running around out there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think eventually it does bite them in the ass, but it takes a while. Yeah, it's I don't remember exactly the blow by blow, but I mean, eventually the Raptors do jump down from the roof and get them. So,
but it's like everyone seemed kind of slow to inform Ellie that the Raptors are no longer on the roof.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
That, you know what that means? It means they're behind the fence that you're hiding behind as you're taunting the other raptor.
Yeah.
And then like where Muldoon is like he's in a pipe and like I can't see this part of the book at all.
I can see the pipe part. I think it is just that the raptors get distracted and they run away and then he's able to get out. We don't actually see that. Mm-hmm. I think most, none of this bothers me because I don't see it as like, oh, these are plot holes. This is sloppy. I see it as like, this is almost like the theme is like these people are trying to like outwit nature and consistently just ending up a half step behind where they need to be.
Well, I mean, the reason the raptors are on the roof in the first place is because I think they just like blithely like, guess we built a tree too close. It's like, Jesus, guys, come on. Yeah. And that's one thing that like, we joked yesterday about the Ellie saying like, West Indian lilac, isn't that dangerous? Isn't that poisonous? Yeah, but the animals don't eat them. And there's a whole scene where there's these plants around the pool of the visitor center that are poisonous and deadly. And there's like, yeah, but they're like ancient plants. So, we got to have those here, right? And it's just like, these people were so stupid. I actually really love Crichton does a really good job with this, where they go to the visitor center and they're kind of in their rooms and then they realize that the plans have changed, right? That they've like they've hastily like welded metal bars over all the windows and skylights in the visitor center, and like they're being told everything's fine, nothing bad has ever happened, we're all cool, but they're seeing these like hasty changes in the whole thing, and it's just this perfect like setup moment of what is going on here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Because we the reader have been shown a bunch of indications that things aren't going well, but it's fun that we're, now we're following our characters who, as far as they know, they're just like, oh, we're just, I don't remember what they know at that specific point, but it's very ominous, clearly. Yeah. Love that.
Do you think it's weird, speaking of just random questions, the book really holds on to the reveal that the way the dinosaurs are procreating is because of the amphibian DNA, and like some frogs in a single sex environment will spontaneously change sex? Like, there are, I think, 3 moments in the novel where Grant is about to bring this up and explain, and then something happens and he gets distracted by it. And like finally at the very end of the book, it's like, oh yeah, He's like, oh yeah, you never told me about that. And it's like, it's played as this like triumphant reveal at the end of the novel. I just thought that was a little weird.
Yeah, I think if you push yourself back to a time when you didn't know
okay, fair.
that frog, that, because we I think, I don't know, right? Like I don't know that this would have played any differently, but to me, I think what he was going for was like, bet you didn't know that frogs can change their sex, which probably nobody knew in the early 1990s.
Isn't it weird how we all know that now?
and now we all know that because of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
So I think that's basically what it is, where it's like, yeah, you just casually inserted the DNA from a bunch of other species into these dinosaurs, and you have no idea even what the qualities of these species are.
Yeah.
So you don't even know what you did. And one of the things that you did, somewhat realistically, is like, well, now they can change gender. Sure.
I think that's fair. The book kind of plays it as this long gestating reveal. And because I definitely already knew, I just was like, well, why didn't you just tell us then? What, like, why hold that for the end of the book? And it's like, well, maybe if you're learning this information for the first time, it is a big moment of reveal, and like, whoa, I didn't know that. That's cool. That explains everything.
I think that's one of the mysteries of the book that you're meant to be pondering the whole time, is like, how are the dinosaurs breeding? They said they were all female. If they're all female, how are they breeding? They know that they're all in it. And it's like, well, that you especially in the early 90s, you thought of sex as just like, it's not complicated. An animal is born with the sex, and that's the sex that it is. And it's like, no, apparently that's just wrong. Your fundamental assumption is wrong. Just like with your counting algorithm that counted up to the number of dinosaurs that it expected to find. You have a fundamentally flawed assumption here.
As someone who works in IT, that is the most realistic dumbass thing ever. Like, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense that you would have fucked that up and just never even considered, oh, wait a minute. we only counted up to the number. Like, the way Dennis Nedry is like, yeah, well, that's what you told me to do, so I did it.
It's just very fun in a simple way when they're like, okay, now look for 470 animals found. Okay, now look for 500 animals found. Like, what? It's great.
Oh, I love it. So anything else? We've been going for a little bit. Anything else I want to talk about Jurassic Park? This is a good, like, if you have been listening to this whole thing and are like, should I read Jurassic Park? I love the movie. Should I read the book? Hell yeah. It's fun. Do it.
Yes. This would, yeah, that's funny. I agree. This is a recommendation, a recommend. It's a very fun book, especially if you love the movie. I think if anything, it's one of those books where, yeah, in some ways it is different from the movie, but in some ways it's just fleshing out what the movie's doing thematically. And I appreciate it on that level for sure.
Yeah. I think it's fun to aqualung thing. It's different enough that you can still be surprised by it. I agree. Like, you can do like 2 fun things, which is I had seen Jurassic Park so many times that whenever they like Spielberg and Kopp like ripped a line right from the book. I was like, there it is. There's that line. And they gave the lines to different characters a lot. You know, like the spared no expense became a John Hammond beat in the book, but he's not even the one that said that in the novel. I believe it was Ed, the PR guy, who originally said spared no expense. And so it's fun to do that, but then it's also fun when the book veers in a really different direction. You get to do that too.
Yeah. I find it to just be a solid, fun experience, and there's a reason why it spawned an entire movie franchise. So yeah, check it out.
Have you seen all the movies?
No, I have not seen several of the new Jurassic Worlds. I've seen all of the Jurassic Parks. So
that's a good call.
I saw the first Jurassic World, and then I was like, I don't care about these characters, and I think I genuinely, just like the way that they turned the dinosaurs into just like sort of dumb. I feel like the CGI got worse, and also just like the behavior of the dinosaurs got more dumb. And I'm like this. I actively dislike this. So
the third Jurassic World movie is like one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. But like, they kind of honestly like lost me in the first one. You know, we were talking about all the ways in which I think something that is pretty consistent with this series is that it is kind of cruel to people that deserve it. Like the characters that are brutalized the most by the dinosaurs, and there are exceptions to this. I'm thinking of Eddie in the second movie, who gets ripped apart by two T-Rexes, who is just trying to save everyone and does save everyone. But with that exception, like when the movie is mean to someone, they are a person that absolutely deserves that. And the thing about Jurassic World that bothered me so much is you have this one character who is put in charge of these two children, and like it's not her job. She's just put in charge of it, and she doesn't do anything wrong. Like she's just kind of failing to keep up with these kids who are intentionally trying to dodge her. And the movie is so mean to her and how she dies. She's picked up by a pterodactyl and like dropped into water and then swallowed by, like, it's so mean to her and unnecessarily cruel to this character for no reason. And I was like, this is not what the Jurassic Park movies do. Like it felt so out of place to me. It was so weird.
Yeah. I agree that bothered me. I mean, I feel like the two kid characters in that movie, they sort of tried to do Jurassic Park with the two kid characters, but they're like the most unlikable characters ever. It's not even the performances. It's like the characters are supposed to be unlikable for some reason, which is just I mean, I also find like everyone in that movie is unlikable. Like Chris Pratt is playing his most uncharismatic and unlikable character ever.
He's an asshole. Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing about that movie is correct. Sorry.
I will say, Jurassic World 2, not a good movie. Not a good movie at all. But there's a sequence in that film where characters are running around in a mansion being chased by like a super raptor. I don't even know if it was a raptor. It was a dinosaur, where it basically becomes like a haunted house horror film briefly. And that part of that movie works really well for me. I think it's a lot of fun, where it's just like basically what Jurassic World does, it just turns them into, it's just a monster movie. And the parts where it's doing monster movie very well don't feel Jurassic Parky to me, but like was still good. I enjoyed that one part of that one movie.
Yeah, I'll watch that part then.
The third one is just hot nonsense. Holy shit. It's like, it's almost worth seeing just to see, like, there's a whole subplot with like killer locusts that are wiping out the world in a Jurassic Park movie. It's Matt. There's some wild shit.
You just got to keep making movies. You got to keep. What does this make sense? No. Is it vaguely related? And have we done it before? Yes or no? Just shove it in there. Shove it in.
Well, are you ready? Are you ready, Matt, for Jurassic World Rebirth?
I'm ready to not watch Jurassic World Rebirth. Yeah.
Come on. It's directed by Gareth Edwards and written by David Kopp, who wrote the first movie.
Wait, is this going to be good? Are you telling me?
I mean, probably not, but
Rebirth. Is it Jurassic World Rebirth?
Yes.
Jurassic World.
It comes out in July.
I don't know about this. Hey, you're hitting me with new information right here at the end of the podcast. We've got Scarlett Johansson, Mahershala Ali, just a bunch of people. Gareth Edwards. What is happening?
Look, man, it's gonna be great. Probably not.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably not.
I'm gonna see it. I've seen every single one of these movies. I'm gonna see it. But man, Diminishing Returns is the log line of this entire series.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the one funny thing that Jurassic World does, the first movie at least, I haven't seen the later ones, is it almost is like it's almost doing like the Matrix Resurrections thing, where it's like, you want us to make another Jurassic Park movie? Really? You want us to make another Jurassic Park movie? Fine. We'll make fun of the whole notion, and we'll have a super dinosaur that's even cooler. And because people are bored of dinosaurs now, the stupid movie going, I mean, Jurassic Park going public is they're bored of dinosaurs because they're so spoiled. We're going to create a new, even more deadly and dangerous kind of dinosaur. And then that's also what they did in the movie, obviously. And they're making fun of us.
Yes, I did enjoy that one part. But the problem is the movie also so desperately wants to be Jurassic Park that entire concept like falls on its head. Like I The Matrix does it like a million times better because it's fully committed to that idea and doesn't actually give you the movie you want. It says, "Oh, you want this? Here you go. Fuck you." The Jurassic World desperately wants to give you that, and also wants to at the same time say, "Haha, you stupid. You're dumb for wanting this, but we want it too." Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. Jurassic World Rebirth. Gareth Edwards. Here we go. Scarlett Johansson. Save us, Scarlett.
What did Gareth Edwards do that was good other than Rogue One, which is marginal?
He directed the first Godzilla movie that I thought was pretty good.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then he did a movie that came out a couple years ago that apparently wasn't very good, called The Creator, that I never actually saw. I think there's some mixed opinions on it. He also directed a movie called Monsters. I think that was his first film. Pretty good.
Okay. All right.
Look,
give it a shot.
It's better than Colin Trevorrow, who handled the last one terribly.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
All right. I think that is going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and close down the poll here. Let me just do some quick refreshes. Got some last minute votes in here. Not going to be enough to turn the tide, unfortunately. But yes. So unsurprisingly, next month, we are going to be taking a look at Stephen King's From a Buick 8. Matt, this will be the first Stephen King novel we have talked about on the book club since 2017, and when we talked about Carrie. So this is going to be kind of cool. We're done with Kingslingers, but we're not done with King quite yet.
That's great. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Treat for our Kingslingers fans.
Yeah, I mean, and this is a book that like it was very, very close to me including this in the season. I think this is a book that came out in the 2000s, and it was between Doof Media and this one for me. And so like this is what I saw someone nominate it, and I was like, yeah, I'd love to talk to you about this book. So I'm looking forward to what you think of it. It's very King, but also kind of very different. I think it's going to be an enjoyable read for everyone.
Awesome.
All right, so that is going to do it for us this month. Y'all, that was really fun. Thanks for participating. I loved all the nerdy dinosaur talk. I always will. And we appreciate y'all. So for those, if you're listening via the audio, we hope you come hang out next time. It is just really enjoyable. We had a bunch of conversation today, and that's always really fun.
Yeah, good suggestion, Ben Westward. After Flanagan's Wake, we will do Dino Slingers, where we just talk about every book that has dinosaurs in it.
Every single one. Dinotopia.
Yep.
The Land Before Time.
I would love to talk about Dinotopia with you.
Dino Riders.
I would love to talk about Dino Riders with you. Oh my God, we found a rich vein of
I
content.
think it started as a joke, but somehow we're here.
Everyone loves dinosaurs.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, if you like what we do here at Dinosaurs, where we talk about dinosaurs at Dinosaur Media,
the D in Doof is actually for dinosaurs. Surprise.
Yep. The D, yeah, exactly. And you want to see more dinosaurs, then please head on over to our Patreon at patreon.com/Doof Media and consider donating to support our organization. At any available level, you'll get access to the ability to vote for the books that we cover each month on this book club, as well as a bunch of other cool exclusive features. We spared no expense, so go check it out.
Yeah, we have our second episode covering the television show From is coming out next week. So make sure you get on the Patreon train and check that out. If you have any questions or comments or just want to reach out and say, hey, you can always find us on Instagram at Doof Media. Email us at doofmedia@gmail.com or check us out on the subreddit r/Doof Media. This was so much fun. Thank you all. And we will see you next month for some Stephen King.
Bye-bye.
Oh, my God. My voice is going. Y'all, that was a struggle at the end there.
Held it together.
This is going to be, we have a big podcast to record next week, and I'm a little worried about this. So,
well, give it a rest then.
I'm not talking for the rest of the weekend. I'm done. I'm absolutely done. Thanks y'all. That was a good time. I have stopped my recording, so we
138 Dynasty Warriors Online.
My computer is playing something. Y'all have a nice time. Have a good weekend, and make sure to check out Flanagan's Wake. The introduction episode will be out next week. That'll be where you can subscribe to the feed, and our first episode will be a week from this coming Thursday, and we will be here on YouTube. You will see our faces if you want to listen to it that way. So, Happy New Year, and we'll check y'all soon.
Happy New Year. Bye-bye.